How can you lead a creative meeting that's going to really bring out a bunch of great ideas? That's what we're talking about today. Are you ready? Because it's time.
You're listening to the Church Digital Sidekick Podcast, part of the TCD Podcast Network.
Hey, heroes, my name is Tom Pounder, and this is the Church Digital Sidekick Podcast. This is the podcast where we bring on ministry leaders and we talk about how you can do ministry more effectively in this very digital and online world. And today I've got my friend Ben Stapley back. Ben is a fantastic leader, and he's a fantastic person who's had tons of experiences leading teams and leading ministries, especially leading them through creative brainstorming processes that lead to fantastic ideas and creative ideas. So today, Ben and I talk about how you can lead those meetings, what are some principles that you can go through, and how you can do that more effectively. And I'm really excited to have him on the podcast. But before we get into the interview, I want to highlight the Church Digital. At thechurch.digital, that's the website, we've got tons of blogs, podcasts, coaching, cohorts that are happening right now that you need to be a part of so that you can help grow your online influence and reach more people for Christ. There's so many fantastic leaders at the Church Digital that want to encourage you and inspire you, and they have tons of experience. So I hope you go to the Church Digital today, look through the website, check out all the stuff, and be a part of one of the coachings, the cohorts, or just read the blogs and listen to the podcast. They're fantastic resources for you each and every day. All right, so without any further ado, let's get into the interview right now with Ben Stapley. All right, with me right now is Ben Stapley. Ben, how are you?
Tom, I was doing good this morning. Now that we're talking, I'm doing great. I can't wait to jump into this topic and to share with your audience today.
Well, see, I'm really excited to get to share with you or listen to you because I always learn stuff from you. But I took a shower this time because in our past conversations, like you're always dressing better than I am. You're always looking better. You're just a suave guy. And so if you're watching this rather than listening to it, you know that, hey, listen, I showered today, so it's good.
Well, if we were just doing audio, it would be a different change, but you told me we were doing video, so I made sure to brush my teeth today.
Oh, good. That's great. Well, Ben, you've been on my podcast a number of times, and you're well known in the church ministry, church communications, and digital ministry field. But someone who may not know who you are, just do a quick little introduction about who you are and what you do.
Yeah, I've been in the church game for about 20 years now. Prior to that, I was working in television as a producer and reporter in Toronto, but I've been involved in church ministry for almost 20 years. The first probably 15 years, I was a creative arts pastor. I've been in a couple mega site churches as well. But about the past 5 years, I transitioned from the creative arts pastor role to the executive pastor role. And so that's where God has me in that seat. I'm really excited for it. And I like that position to have this conversation with people today because sometimes I'm talking to the people who are executing the ideas, the creatives, and helping inspire them. And then also sometimes I'm talking to the leaders who are trying to help those people bring out their best. And so I come to this conversation from both sides of that equation. I'm looking forward to talking to both sides of the audience who are listening as well.
Yeah, and like I said earlier, like I always love talking to you because you have so much experience. Again, outside ministry experience, but also ministry experience, and a lot of the stuff that people are really dealing with and struggling. I love keeping tabs with you on social media. We're gonna talk about your social media later as we kind of wrap up. But if you're not following Ben Stapley on social media, you have to because he's always sharing insight and he's always sharing great stuff about his family. Ben is a true family man, and it's great to see him being a dad to his kids. So again, we'll talk about Ben's stuff a little bit after that. But let's get into the conversation today. What we're talking about, we're really talking about brainstorming meetings that kind of pour down ideas. This is from you. You're passionate about this. Why are you passionate about this in particular?
Well, you told me we only have 30 minutes, so I don't know how I can tell you all my passions behind it, and I'm going to talk quick to get as many ideas out. But the reason there's a couple reasons I'm really passionate about this. First of all, we serve a creative God. When you look at scriptures, what did he start with, right? The first relationship we have with him is not Savior, is not Lord, it's not even Father. Our first relationship is he's a creator. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. When we look at the creation account, we start there with what he made, not systematic theology, not a great sermon with three illustrated bullet points, but we start with creation. And so we know that we serve a creative God. And then because of that, our worship should reflect that creativity. The first person that God infused with his Holy Spirit wasn't a pastor, wasn't a priest, wasn't a king. It was an artist. Like a lot of the people who are listening to your podcast, digital artists. It was an Exodus, Bezalel, who was creating the tabernacle. It was a tradesman, someone who was good with working with wood and jewelry and furs, someone who was entrusted with building this. God said, I'm giving you my Holy Spirit. That's the first person ever in the Bible, someone who is creating something. And so we have a creative God. He gives us his spirit to help both help our creativity flourish. But beyond that, we see him asking for things from us that are creative as well. When we hear in scriptures, David says in the Psalms, I'm going to sing to God a new song. I'm not
Yeah.
just going to sing the ones from the past. I'm not. David was a top 40 artist, right? He had his top 10 songs that people loved. He said, I'm going to bring a new song to God because great is his faithfulness. His mercies are new every morning. And so if God is doing a new thing in our midst, if he's bringing a fresh revival to us, then our worship and our experiences should reflect that. And brainstorming helps us get to that end that we show the newness of God that we're experiencing in our own lives, in our ministries, in our churches, and we're showcasing that to the world.
Yeah, you're so true. I love how you brought up David about bringing a new song. I thought you were going to talk about how David talks about go psalms, hymns, and spiritual songs that we need to shout to the Lord with that. And I agree. We serve a creative God, and therefore we have to be creative in how we share the message of Christ with people, and we have to honor that. And so you have a list of 10 ideas. We're going to get through as many as we can. And if not, I'm going to encourage you to hit up Ben a little bit later because Ben has so much insight on this. So as you're looking at setting up a meeting, again, the infamous, oh, not another meeting. But I think
Mhm.
this is actually a really productive meeting that you're going to want to have. But as you're looking at setting up these meetings that really pour out ideas, what's the first thing that you want to do?
If you are gathering people to your room, to your meeting, whatever it is, I always like to communicate the scope of what's going to happen beforehand. Some creative people love to think on their feet and love to spitball ideas kind of real time. It's like, well, let's go. But not everybody's wired that way. And I think sometimes that's a misnomer. Some people like to bring their best ideas. They like to think about it for a while. They kind of consider the crock pot mentality, not the microwave mentality, that they're going to take a while to germinate their ideas. So if that's the case, make sure you let them know what you're talking about. It's really basic, but sometimes I've been invited to a brainstorming meeting and I wasn't even told what the topic was until I showed up. Well, I'm not going to be able to bring up my best ideas in the moment. I need to think about it beforehand. So honor those people who are wired that way. And then another big foundational, we're starting at ground zero here. A foundational principle is to always think aspirational before practical. I remember once I was in a meeting and someone else was leading it, and they said, "Okay, so the budget is X, Y." And before they even got through what the budget was, someone paused them. They said, "No, no, stop, stop, stop! Don't tell me what the budget is, because if you tell me what the budget is, right away my ideas shrink to that size, and they get down to that level. Just let's think. Let's ideate, let's think aspirationally, let's think as big as picture as possible, and then on the back end, let's figure out what the budget is and how to scale down our ideas instead of giving me that limiter right away. You think of when you go to a go-kart, there's a governor on the back of the go-kart that reduces your speed. Don't reduce the speed of your team on the get-go by telling what the budget is. Think about the ideas and then how to make them fit within your budget. Those are two. I'll give one more, and then I'd love to hear your response. But
Yeah, please.
the one more foundational idea is I always encourage people to think about the 9-to-1 ratio. So what I mean by that 9-to-1 ratio is if you're going to give out 10 ideas, generally speaking, 9 of them aren't going to work. But one of them is. One of them is going to be that home run idea. The thing is, you need to push through those 9 bad ideas to get to the one idea, and oftentimes we don't want to. We don't throw out enough ideas, or we're embarrassed by the bad ideas. So you need to push through the bad ideas to get to the one great idea. some very practical ways in which I do that is I just start with a bad idea.
Yep.
I start, hey, guys, what about we bring in clowns for this event? Clowns are usually never a good idea, but I just say that up and people laugh. It's disarming. I get my bad ideas out there and lets other people get their bad ideas out there, which helps us get to the one good idea. I remember the post laureate for the states, a poet. Someone asked him on NPR. They were interviewing him, and they said, "When did you write your first good poem?" And he said, "It took me 200 bad poems to get to my first good poem." And he was encouraging other poets out there, saying, "Write 200 bad poems, you'll get to one." Now, I don't think you need to get through 200 bad ideas to get to one good idea, but there is a ratio there, and unless you're willing to be in that awkwardness of hearing clunkers of ideas, even coming from yourself, you're never going to get to the good one. So just acknowledge that up front. The majority of these are going to hit the cutting room floor, and we're okay with that because one of these is going to rise to the surface, and we're going to be really proud about it.
Yeah, man, I love all this stuff that you are sharing because one is I'm kind of like you. I don't want to go into a meeting and not know what the meeting is about. For all we know, we could all be fired from that meeting. Like we want to kind of know what the meeting is about. And so again, I like it how you said so you can bring your best ideas forward. I am not a quick thinker. I need to sit, I need to process, I need to think through some stuff of my own so that when I come, I know I'm not going to bring the best idea and the only idea, but at least I'll have some ideas to come along with me. So if you're communicating the scope beforehand, you're really setting your team up to succeed and to make that meeting a very valuable meeting. And then I liked how you talked about think aspirationally before practically, because like you said, if you're already limiting and setting guidelines in there, you're really limiting the thought, the brainstorming that can come out of it. Again, something extravagant might be thrown out that you can't do, but honestly, as you kind of work through it, maybe you can get to something that you can do. And so
Mhm.
I like how you allow them to just think creatively, you think just freely. And one thing that you didn't hit on already yet, you may hit on it later, but I like this one. You said you remove the pressure from people. You remove the pressure. Talk a little bit about that real quick because I really think that's important.
I had a friend of mine who was a comedian, and I said, "What's the worst thing about being a comedian?" He said, "When people just want you to tell a joke on the spot." He said, "I'm sorry, comedy doesn't work that way. It's never funny when someone's like, 'Be funny now.'" And for a creative, sometimes you feel that same way, right? Like pressure of like, "Give me great ideas. You're an idea guy. Go." And there's the pressure towards it. And so again, if you give people the scope beforehand, it takes some of that pressure down. If you're going to say we have a bunch of bad ideas up front, that's okay. I want to hear your bad ideas. And it's actually interesting. Sometimes my best ideas have come from bad ideas. When you say something terrible and everyone kind of laughs, "Oh, that's the worst idea." And then it's always interesting. Someone's like, "But what happens if we modify it and build upon it?" And it gives you that abstract thinking, that that box perspective by just saying the bad things. And so all that pressure release allows you to come up with good ideas, and you don't feel like you're being put on the spot to be funny or to be creative right away. So as much as possible to take away that pressure really is really, really helpful. Beyond that, and this is super practical, but I've done it myself and I've seen other people do it, is making sure you write down the ideas. I've been a part of brainstorming meetings where people talk for half an hour and you're just going off. You're like, "These are great." And then at the end of the meeting, it's like, "Okay, who took notes?"
Yeah.
And nobody took any notes. But writing beyond the very practical aspect of being able to come back to your notes afterwards, writing down ideas does super helpful for a couple ways. And so you put it up on the whiteboard, on the flip chart. It honors, like, "Hey, Tom, that was a great idea. I'm writing, your name and your idea." It honors you and your participation. It says, "Thank you for having a voice in this meeting." Um, it allows visual learners to remember what's being discussed because, you see a list of the ideas behind them. You start to see repeating themes in the conversation as well. And you're able to cluster ideas from that. Just even the that practical tip of writing down ideas will really help people beyond that. Um,
Yeah, I
y-
think
y-
I agree 100% with you. And then you talk about a transcriber. Like you talk about writing down ideas, but then also having a transcriber. What's the difference there?
I don't know about you. Sometimes I've led meetings like this, and I feel like I'm a one-man band, like the guy who's got the drums on the back, and you're doing everything at once. And if you're trying to lead the meeting and be the transcriber, you're gonna compromise one of the two things.
Mhm.
And so ideally, I have somebody else play that. If I'm leading the meeting, I have someone else play the role of a transcriber who can be writing the ideas down as I'm fostering conversation. I'm rewarding people for good ideas. I'm giving them high fives. I'm throwing them Jolly Ranchers or whatever it might be. And I'm fostering that environment while someone else is transcribing. And the other reason I encourage you to get somebody else to write the ideas down is because there's a popcorn moment. What I mean by that is whenever you're popping popcorn, you put it in the microwave, it says put it on for 2 minutes, right? And you put it on and it goes the first minute, nothing's happening. Minute 10, nothing's happening. But 90 seconds in, you hear the popping start. And it starts slowly and then it just speeds up. And for about 30 seconds, the popcorn's popping. Oftentimes in a brainstorming meeting, it's very similar. There's nothing going on. And then about halfway through, three-quarters of the way through, ideas start popping off. And if you're trying to play the role of transcriber during that critical moment, you're missing the ideas because you're not fostering them from the people. Having a transcriber is going to do nothing for the first half of the meeting. We're just going to be writing down bad ideas. But when the ideas are popping off, they're critical so that you can foster the ideas and not lose them at the same moment.
Wow, yeah, that's awesome. But I want to go back to something real quick that you just said. Do you give out Jolly Ranchers and throw out candy to people? Like what you are giving rewards to people?
I don't have it on me. I usually have one of these on me at all times, a $5 gift card for Starbucks. What I'll do is I say, hey, everybody, there's going to be one idea in this meeting. You could take the baseball analogy, right? It's going to be a grand slam idea, or it's the idea when somebody says it, we all go,
Yeah.
that's it. That's the idea. And everyone in the room knows it. And once it's said, you can literally feel, I get electric from it because you can feel it in the moment. That is the idea. That's why we gathered here. And it's
Yeah.
like, but we all know it, and sometimes it's like it's not your idea, it's somebody else's. Like, man, that was a way better idea than mine. It's like, here's the $5 gift card. I'm putting it up on the dry erase board. And when that moment comes, whoever it is, let me give that to you. Beyond that, sometimes to get ideas going at the beginning, it's humorous. I'm like, hey, I'm rewarding all ideas, even the bad ones. I got a bowl full of Jolly Ranchers, whatever it might be, and I'm just throwing them out to people to get them engaged. Sometimes I've done something as silly as when people give ideas, I walk around, I'm high-fiving them. Thanks for that idea. We all know that principle. What gets rewarded gets repeated. At the very beginning of the meeting, I try to foster a very positive environment for people to share, even sharing the bad ideas to get them out of the way.
Yeah, listen, I'll take a $5 gift card to Starbucks anytime, and I'll come up with my best ideas just to get that $5 gift card,
Yeah,
even though that won't get me much these days, with inflation.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Maybe a tall, not a grande.
Yeah, exactly. But and it sounds silly with the Jolly Ranchers or Reese's Pieces that you give away or whatnot. But the reality is that it really fosters a community of fun. It fosters an idea of like, hey, Ben really values me. He's really being cheerful about this. He's being excited about this. I'm excited about this. And so I think that's a great idea that people should really implement in their meetings. So. Okay, one other thing that you said on that I think is really, really important, and I think too many of us, myself included, fail at this. But you talk about meet earlier than needed. Talk to me a little bit about that. Meet earlier than needed.
Again, this kind of comes back to the reducing the pressure. As many ways in which you can reduce the pressure is helpful. So oftentimes we do this fairly well as churches. I'll cut back to our context churches. Maybe in July, August, maybe September, we'll start planning for Christmas, which is helpful. But then churches usually got bit, and probably some churches right now, I don't know when this podcast is dropping. We're recording the beginning of February here. Some churches forget about planning for Easter until they're a little bit into the year, and then you really feel like you got your back against the wall. Again, most people don't come up with their best ideas under pressure. Give them more time than needed. Sometimes I'll put out if I know my event's here and we're meeting here, I'll put the invite to the meeting a month or two out from that to let people germinate about it in the background. We all have our shower ideas, right? Your brain's vacant. They're just thinking, you get your best ideas there. If I'm able to let them know a meeting's coming up a month before it happens, then they're able to have those. I'm now right now I'm planting seeds in their mind during their commutes, during their showers, during their quote unquote mindless time, that their mind is subconsciously working on it in the background. And then they come to the table with those ideas. And so meeting earlier helps that, letting people know it's not like, hey, we're meeting tomorrow, letting them know with a lot of lead time to benefit from their subconscious working on this in the background. They don't even realize they're doing it. That's just how our minds work. You give them a riddle to solve, you give them a problem to fix, their mind will subconsciously work on that and then come with better ideas. So as much as you can give lead time on that, you benefit from the subconscious and you get better ideas.
Yeah, I think that's 100% true because again, the further you push this closer to the event that you're having or the activity that you're having, the more stress you're going to have anyways. And so this really reduces the stress that people are going to be feeling. They're going to come with their, like you said, they're come with their best ideas. And it's a less pressure filled meeting because there's not major deadlines like immediately coming up from it. So I think that's really important just to meet earlier than needed. And then you kind of talk about keeping it going. What does that mean? Like keeping it going. You're meeting early. What are you going to do 10 more meetings or what does that look like?
No more meetings, no more meetings. Yeah, so when I say keep it going is again, you benefit we were talking about benefiting before the meeting by benefiting from the subconscious, but benefit after the meeting as well from the subconscious. That just because you had a 30-minute conversation on it doesn't mean everyone's minds have turned off. They probably aren't actively still thinking about it, but it's still in the subconscious. And now they've spent time thinking about it. They've spent time talking about others. They've heard new ideas. Those ideas are again fostering new ideas as they go on. And so what I'll tell people afterwards is, hey, I'll be active. If you think of more things beyond this, let me know. But beyond that, I'll just schedule an email a week afterwards with, hey, team, has anything else come up to you over the past week? And I found even that simple question and coming back is I always elicit more responses from people with, yeah, I have been thinking about it more. It's a simple way to get more ideas after the fact from the meeting. And another factor too, this is a little rabbit trail here. Sometimes in our meetings, we come up with great ideas for the wrong problem. What I mean by that is you might be planning for Christmas, or let's go back to Easter, right? Easter's around the corner. We're planning for Easter and we're thinking about that. And then someone's like, you know what? Actually, like in our kids program, I think for this idea, da 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 da, VBS, blah blah blah. And you're like, hey, wrong meeting. Stop talking about VBS. That's in the summer. We're talking. And sometimes you naturally come up with great ideas for something different, but it gets shot down. And so even coming back to that transcriber, you might come up with right ideas, but it's for the wrong meeting. Capture those ideas and then pass them on as well to those different departments or those different events after the fact, because that's just the way their mind works. Creativity isn't in a box. You're going to have people that naturally wander outside of what you're talking about. If it's a good idea, pass it along to the needed parties.
I love that idea because it's inevitable that someone's gonna have a great idea for this while you're still talking about Easter or whatnot. So it's great that you have that transcriber that say, hey, we're gonna jot this down and we'll come back to it at another time. But again, it keeps it going and maybe that meeting that you had, that creative meeting that you had for Easter would really go to serve this as a starting point for Vacation Bible School or something else down the road. So I think that's awesome. Okay, Ben, as we're kind of wrapping up here, what other tips or insights would you give and share as people are thinking about leading these types of meetings?
The big thing we haven't talked about this is in terms of the team that's there and making sure that invite the right people to the meeting, not the wrong people to the meeting. You can sabotage your meeting right away by bringing the wrong people, right? You can understand some personalities like an Eeyore, somebody like, oh, not this again. Somebody who's super critical and just criticizes other ideas. So avoiding the wrong people, inviting the right people. Uh, a couple ways to think about that. You need two types of people. You need ideators and executors. You need the people coming up with the ideas, but then also the team that's there executing it, who can say, I don't know if that's really practical. How do we modify that? Having those types of people there. And then a couple other ways in which I say that too is I have hard workers, positive attitudes, and flexible minds. Hard workers, positive attitudes, flexible minds. So hard workers, someone who's going to do the homework, in relationship to what was asked for. We're discussing the topic. Did you think about it in advance? They're a hard worker. They have a positive attitude, so they're looking to add value and benefit and a positive vibe in the environment. They're not critical. And then they're also flexible minds. And so there's an old improv rule of there's two rules if you're working in improv. It's yes, and. And so when someone brings up an idea in a conversation, when you're improving, you say yes towards that, and then and you add on to it. That same flexibility, that's it needs to be in a brainstorming. If someone says an idea like, yes, that's good, and we can add on it by X, Y, and Z. Uh, those are some of the types of people I look for in a meeting. And then the other, in terms of building that team, the other thing I encourage people towards is think about outside. Who are you inviting outside into that meeting? So outside of the department, again, it might be your creative team thinking about Easter. Well, maybe we get in the kids pastor, or maybe we get in the groups coordinator. Who's creative in our staff that we can pull from outside to talk about that? A big thing for churches is outside of their staff, who are our vast sea of volunteers. I once had somebody on staff, or sorry, in our congregation, who was working for Disney, and they were incredibly creative. They were a volunteer, and they were sitting in our midst, and we never pulled them into a brainstorming service meeting for some of our biggest services, and we were missing out on them because we weren't inviting them from the outside into the inside. And then also, this is a little, bear with me here. Um, there are times where we should invite people even from outside our faith to help us brainstorm a solution. So that might be inviting somebody, the mayor, who's maybe an atheist, but you're trying to solve a joint problem of homelessness in the city. They're outside the faith, but they should be brought into that conversation. If you go back to the example of Moses and his father-in-law, who is a Midian priest, a pagan religion, he was the one who told Moses, "Hey, your leadership is being capped here. You can't lead all these people. You should break them out into clusters of people and then have you oversee those people who oversee those people." And he brainstormed with his son-in-law a leadership principle that led the nation of Israel. It was someone outside of the faith. And so again, think about who that team is and how are you bringing the needed outside people when appropriate inside to have that conversation.
I think what you just shared is so invaluable. I mean, it's really, really important because, again, bringing in the wrong people to your meeting is it's going to really squash ideas, and you're not going to be able to get that momentum that you're talking about. And so, and you know them, you know who those people are on your staff, and you don't want to have it. But I like how you talk about bringing in outside people that are beyond that specific meeting because, in that way, if you're like bringing in a person who's maybe not involved specifically with that meeting but because they have really good ideas, you're really honoring them and valuing them, and you're showing them, hey, we really like what you do, we really value you, and that may give them a really special, like, positive vibe about your church and your ministry, and they'll be like, hey, when things get really discouraging, they'll be like, no, but you know what? Ben, he invited me to this meeting, and I just felt real value there, and that was awesome. But then
Mhm.
your last one about bringing in outside people to help you solve a problem. We are all in our communities trying to solve problems. And by bringing in community leaders and people that really feel like you're partnering with them and you're showing them, hey, we want to serve you and we want you to be a part of what we're trying to do so we can work together. I think those are some great ideas, Ben.
It's good. It's good,
So
Tom.
well, Ben, this has been awesome. I've been really, again, I always learn so much when you're with me. As we're kind of wrapping up here, how can someone kind of connect with you if they're like, hey, I want to know more about this, I want to schedule a time with you? How can they connect with you today?
I'm going to share that, but I'm going to shoehorn in one last idea before we break,
Great,
is
great.
to remember that brainstorming is a hallowed, a holy experience. Sometimes we think, especially if you're in the creative space, the digital space, if you're the one putting on experiences and putting content out there, we think that that God shows up in the Holy Spirit and that the holy moments are during the performance, right? During Sunday morning or when we go live. But God is with us in our midst, not just during our performances. He's with us during our practices, and He's with us during our planning. And as you sit around the table and have a brainstorming meeting, realize that it is holy, that God is in your midst, that He wants to give you ideas. I think of the passage from Isaiah 43 when the prophet tells the nation, "Don't remember the old things. Literally, forget about the old things." When He took us through the out of Egypt and through the Red Sea, and he crushed Egypt. Forget about that, because God wants to do a new thing, and oftentimes we hold on to the old, and because of that, we're not ready to receive the new things God wants from us. So remember, brainstorming is holy. Pray that God shows up, and He will during your meetings. That's my last spiel.
Wait,
You,
let me say
yeah.
let me say this because my pastor met with a guy from overseas, and he was a ministry guy from overseas, and this really highlights your point here. He said after he toured a bunch of American churches, he spent probably about a month to 2 months just touring American churches
Mhm.
and ministries. And as he was leaving, my pastor asked him like, "What did you learn? What was insightful?" And the guy said, "It's amazing how much you all can get accomplished without prayer." And it's like, man, we are not inviting Jesus into our meetings. We need to be inviting him to give us the ideas. That's a fantastic point, Ben. I appreciate you sharing that.
Yeah. Oftentimes I don't like the knee jerk. We're starting a meeting and therefore we need to pray. But brainstorming meetings is a great chance to start with prayer. I like that, Tom.
Yeah. Well, Ben, how can people connect with you?
Yeah, if you're brainstorming a big topic coming up, maybe it's Easter, maybe it's your VBS, whatever it might be, maybe it's your digital platforms, how to reinvigorate them. I'd love to coach you. You can go to benstapley.com/coach. I'll give you a free half an hour consultation, hear your problems, either suggest myself to help you solve them, or if I'm not the right person, point you in the direction of other people who can solve them better than I can.
Ben is a fantastic coach. He is I learned so much from him, and he's well respected within the ministry range. So I really appreciate Ben, you always coming on and humor me and by being on this podcast with me so many times. So I
Oh,
appreciate it.
I love it, Tom. Thanks for having me.
All right, so what did you think of the interview? What did you think of all the different ideas that Ben shared? They were all great. We probably hit on at least 10 different ideas that you can do and the things that you can implement in your next meeting. And I would encourage you, all of them are really important. All of them are key. Otherwise, Ben wouldn't share them. Even the simple little throwing out the Jolly Ranchers. Those are all important aspects of leading these teams and leading these meetings. So I hope you're able to take away a bunch of different things for your next meeting that you lead. All right, heroes. Well, thanks so much for joining me for the Church Digital Sidekick podcast. As always, if you enjoyed the podcast, go and subscribe to it. It's on YouTube. It's on Facebook groups. It's on different platforms like Apple and Spotify and Amazon. So go and subscribe to it. I've got all the links on there in the show notes. So would love for you to do that so you get these every time they come out. All right, heroes. Well, I hope you have a great rest of your day, a great rest of your week. And until next time, have a great one.